Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Excellencies, Heads of Diplomatic Corps, distinguished captains of business and finance, Nananum, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are deeply humbled by the enormity of the honor bestowed upon us by the event taking place here tonight. In the 2 decades since we ascended the golden stool, we've had the privilege of hosting many of you here for our various Adair festivals and many other events. But the launch of a gold coin in our honor is something that we truly appreciate and sincerely thank all those who have made it happen. We are grateful to the young men who have been moved by our efforts to commemorate them in this manner, and we are particularly thankful to the Bank of Ghana, especially the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, for giving them the nod to proceed. Asante has been acknowledged for centuries as the Kingdom of Gold. The spirit and energy of the Asante nation is drawn from the golden stool, and it was the wealth from gold which enabled Asante to build and sustain a kingdom for 4 centuries up to today. In 2015, I was invited by Lord Williams, Master of Magdalene College of the University of Cambridge, to deliver a keynote address at the relaunch of the Professorship for African Archaeology, established in memory of our Revered African icon Nelson Mandela. In my address to the distinguished audience in one of the citadels of knowledge, I touched on 2 things, among others, that should be relevant tonight. The first was about the extraordinary story of the man said to be the richest man who ever lived. 2 months before my address, a group of economic historians had published a study of the richest men in human history. They compiled from their study a list of the 10 richest men of all time. It stretched from Emperor Augustus Caesar of the Roman Empire, Emperor Shenzong of China's Song dynasty, Genghis Khan of the Mongolan Empire, Emperor Akbar of the Great of India's Mughal dynasty, and ran through the giants of the Industrial Revolution to Andrew Carnegie and Rockefeller, down to the colossus of the modern era, Bill Gates. But the remarkable thing was that at the top of this pyramid was not one of these men who command the history of humanity. The person identified by the study as the richest man who ever walked the face of the earth was an African from the West Coast, King Mansa Kankan Musa of the Empire of Mali. Interestingly, the Mali Empire took over the collapse of the ancient Ghana Empire, and King Mansa Musa came to the throne around 1312 AD and ruled for a quarter of a century. In his time, he built Mali into one of the leading empires in the world and organized the production and sale of gold along the west coast of Africa, stretching from the tip of the Sahel, where he was based, to the forest areas of what is today's Ghana. History records the pilgrimage of King Mansa to the lands of Arabia in 1324, when he dispensed and lavished so much gold that it affected the Egyptian currency, and the government literally had to beg him to stop. According to the panel, King Musa is the only person in history whose wealth was inestimable. The significant point here is that part of the gold which made King Musa the richest man in human history came from organized trade and migration from his immediate empire to what came to be known later as Asante lands. This trade and exchange of gold provided the evidential basis for the connection between what was the Gold Coast and the old Ghana Empire, which encouraged our founding fathers to propose the adoption of Ghana for a new sovereign state. I also told the audience about the story of Ashanti Goldfields. In 1897, before Asante lost its sovereignty, two brothers from Fante, Joseph Yi Bani and Joseph Yi Ellis, arrived in Asante to ask for concessions to establish the quantum of gold in the hills around Obuasi. They were granted the concessions appropriately by the chiefs. The brothers then went to the city of London with all their feasibility studies to look for partners to join them in what they knew was going to be a highly profitable business. But while the city was excited about the prospects of the company, none wanted to be partner of a native boy. Thus, the Bani brothers were compelled to sell the business to city tycoons who ran the mines from London for years before passing it on to South Africa. My dear brother Sam Jonah happened to bring this mine into more fruition by creating so many mines from here to Mali, Keita, and other places, and to other places in Tanzania and others, where he built so many mines at that time when he took over as a Ghanaian. The mine became synonymous with General Spears and Tiny Rowlands instead of the Banis who started it all. What these stories tell us is that gold has been the backbone of this nation since the beginning of history. Gold was Asante, and it was the clamor for gold which was the main driver of our colonial conquest. It was not without reason that we were called the Gold Coast. From the Gold Coast to sovereign Ghana, gold has played a major role in the growth and sustenance of our economy. But while the nation has gained enormously from the metal, and it is heartwarming to know that Ghana is still the largest gold producer in Africa, and yet, we cannot help acknowledging the legitimate question remain about the proportionality of the benefits relative to the traditional areas from which the metal is mined. When Asante was integrated into the Gold Coast, we gave up control of our gold resources which passed to the government. That has continued since independence, with the central government controlling all our minerals resources while our traditional rulers control the land. But as we all know, the process by which we get to the mineral resources entails tremendous damage to and degradation of the lands. So we have a situation in which the state glories in the glitter of gold, while the owners of the land are left with the ravages from the degraded deposit, the spoiled lands. And I was glad to hear from the governor and then from the vice president that now the Bank of Ghana has made a policy to buy gold and retain it here under this government, and we thank you very much for that, because it was interesting that from 1960 up to this time, Ghana, the Bank of Ghana, the central government, was not holding any gold at all, when we are gold producers, with all due respect. And that is an indictment on all of us in terms of why should Ghana be known as Gold Coast, and yet we cannot still go to our vault in the central bank to have gold till now that a decision is being taken. The calamitous impact on our environment, compounded by the scourge of galamsey that has afflicted our country for some years now, has struck Ghana and the mining industry deep in the throes of the debates about climate, which is the greatest challenge facing humanity today. How do we reclaim our forest cover and restore our ecosystem? How do we ensure the adoption and sustainable practices in our mining industry? And how do we now ensure that the benefits of gold are truly reflected in the communities where they are produced? It is true, of course, that there have been considerable improvements lately in the benefits accruing to our communities through our various interventions to mitigate the consequence of the mining activities. All the mining companies are now providing improved social services to the communities in which they operate. But that is to say that the social responsibility provisions necessarily address the need for a review of the entire system, not only to address past inequities, but to allow a greater role in the global stage for traditional institutions. I need not draw your attention to the fact that it's taken an enterprising young business to devise tonight's event in recognition of our efforts to the nation. And as I have said, I'm grateful to them, to the Bank of Ghana, and especially to the government, and to all of you who have supported the project. But on our part, I do not think that Asantehene, the Kingdom of Gold, needs to hide under a bushel if it seeks to engage in any appropriate legitimate gold business. We don't have to. Nor do we have to be hesitant in seeking to take responsibility for the challenge of reclaiming our degraded lands, restocking our forests, and in maximizing the benefits to be derived from gold. That is why, Mr. Minister, I am announcing to you tonight and to everybody that Asantehene's commitment to tackle the challenge of deforestation and ensure the reforestation of at least 50% of our degraded forest lands within the next 5 years. So, Mr. Minister Fall, I know you traveled out and you talked about this, and I'm placing the challenge because we want to do it. We want to be able to do this in partnership with dedicated green investment vehicles to drive the momentum for Ghana's transition to a carbon neutral nation in accordance with our international commitments. It is my hope that the success of the commemorative gold coin we launched tonight will convince the nation that there's room for more innovative ways to help us to maximize the basis of our nation's wealth. Asantehene will play its part in this exercise and will encourage other traditional leaders to harness the creative talents at their disposal to make it a worthy global effort. Obviously, a lot rests on the success of tonight's event and its aftermath. Conscious of the fact that the success of such a project can be influenced by the environment and the climate in which it is held, I have agonized in the past weeks about the fact that the nation is passing through some of the most challenging times, with ill winds threatening to blow us apart, and I feel there must be many who are wondering whether this is the right moment to be seen to be jolly. Your Excellency the Vice President, my Lord Chief Justice, the Chief of Staff, our forefathers who created the Asante Kingdom were truly unique in Africa. They created their own calendar embodying the spiritual and moral ethos. And that's what happened today. The Asante calendar provided for a period when the nation paused to give thanks to for the blessing they enjoy, took stock of what they had done and planned for the way forward. They did that, not once a year, but once every 42 days, which is when we mark our Day Festival. It is a period for spiritual renewal, to commune with our inner selves, take account of the challenges before us, in abiding contemplation, resolve on the way forward. On the last Day of every year, we take stock of the year's performance and rededicate ourselves to the challenges of the coming year. It is the way, the energy and spirit Asante as prescribed by Otumfuo Osei Tutu the first and his Obrikonfo Anoche has sustained the kingdom through good times and bad times for 4 centuries, and we who are their heirs to their great heritage have no choice but to carry on. Today marks the last Akosua Day of the year 2021, and what better than to use the moment to confront the unprecedented challenges facing our nation. Because of time limits, I couldn't have the chance to say that, but I think I want to say it now, and resolve not to be buried by them, but to strive to turn the tide and regain the momentum of progress in our lives. So, Your Excellency the Vice President, my Lord Chief Justice, honorable ministers and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, before this honorable audience, including the envoys of brother and friendly nations from across the world, I ask our leaders from all shades of political opinion, our social commentators who control the space of public discourse, and captains of finance and business whose enterprises depend on the climate of success. It is time to stop the nation bleeding to extinction. The good people of Ghana take pride in their commitment to democratic governance. We have been proud to be an oasis of peace in an isle of torrent, and our record as a thriving democracy has served us well and made the chosen destination of many investors. What we dare not forget is that democracy is not a static object. Nothing in statecraft really is. Democracy is a work in progress. The British have avoided giving themselves a written constitution because the absence obviously gives British democracy the latitude and flexibility to float with the tide. The American Constitution, held as a gold standard of democracy, has been sustained by its scope for amendments to suit changing circumstances. In a sense, adaptability has been a source of sustenance. We have been brought up on the notion that democracy simply means the minority have their say, but the majority have their way. That may very well be true, but in the cold world of real politics, it cannot be without caveats. As national and international problems become more complex, nations are finding that the smart and prudent way is to seek convergence of different points of view. Thus, across many jurisdictions today, one word has come to symbolize the livelihood and the soul of democracy. It is called compromise. Whether you are navigating through the labyrinths of international diplomacy or confronting the intractable issues of domestic politics, from the United States to Germany, from Israel to Japan, through all the land proclaiming their faith in democracy, the name of the game is compromise. It makes sense. History and perhaps science too should tell us that when an irresistible force meets an immovable object, the inevitable outcome is chaos. When the art of governance becomes overly rigid and inflexible, it invites the search for an irresistible force and an unorthodox path to resistance. Or, if you like, when you tempt fate too often, you risk the danger of fate descending with unintended consequences. We have been fortunate in our political journey to have moved from a period when one political party dominated everything. Today, at least 2 main political parties have each had a period in government. If we are honest, we will agree there is no perfect government, and there will never be as long as different points of view prevail. And if we are honest, we will also agree that there are no people in the whole wide world who love paying taxes. And yet, there is no other way conceived by the human mind by which governments can raise the resources to provide for our needs other than by raising taxes. And I do not know of any form of taxes which is less painful than others. So alas, governments of all hues will raise such taxes as they find necessary to meet our needs. And alas, if we are good citizens, we have to pay our taxes. We elect people to represent us to make sure there's some equilibrium in what governments do. It is to our good that our representatives in Parliament subject the national budget to the most vigorous scrutiny and to call for changes. Governments must always also have the humility to acknowledge and embrace useful inputs from all sources. But our representatives need to also bear in mind that it is not their role to either determine policy for the executive or to frustrate them from performing their legitimate duties. The good thing is, in a democracy, is that people listen, observe and weigh what their leaders do over time, and pass their judgment at the appropriate time. So our parliamentary representatives can be assured that their contributions in the houses are not wasted. The people have noted them, and no doubt they will reflect on them when the time comes to determine the next phase in our governing process. That may be 2 years away, but that is what democracy demands. What is important now is for them to turn down the temperature and allow the process of governance to proceed so that the people retain their exclusive right to pass judgment on how they have been governed at the appropriate time. The captains of business and finance gathered here tonight need the certainty in our political climate to facilitate their successful operations. The global investment community seeks the certainty of our democratic commitment to encourage them to purchase our gold and invest in our economy. And the good people of Ghana want the reassurance that the democratic path that they have chosen remain irreversible. So let the spirit of compromise prevail and drastically reduce, if not completely eliminate, the risk of our democratic governance being truncated by unforeseen circumstances. May the storm soon blow over and Ghana continue to shine like the 24-karat commemorative gold coin now and forever. I don't come to Accra, so I can't go to Parliament and I can't go anywhere. So I'm a poor soul staying here. Thank you for your support. And may God continue to bless our time in indivisible homeland Ghana and then Asantehene. Thank you very much.